Good morning, folks. Welcome to Tournament Tuesday. Let me pull that down for just a second. We're hitting up bronze defense tournaments today. I've already seen the questions in the chat. What is bronze defense? Bronze defense is the 16-team tournaments they run. They're quick tournaments for the most part. 16 teams, best of 3 tournaments. First place finish 2,000 points. Second place finish 1,000 points. Players are from 1980 to 1992, but it uses modern strategy and settings. So keep that in mind as we're going through the stats today, including the designated hitter. Again, best of 3 series, pretty small tournaments. Why do I like these tournaments? I like these defense tournaments because they're a really, really quick way of grinding out tournaments. So you can get data on them for me or perfect points as well. So it's all it takes is 6 wins to get into the perfect points in these, as opposed to 8 or 12 or however many more. The rewards aren't huge. It's 2,000 or 1,000 perfect points. So you're kind of gonna get what you get, but they're still it's just a really good way to grind out perfect points if you're trying to put together a pretty cheap team. I put together a team for it when I started doing it for 600 points, and I won the first one, already paid for itself. So the teams will pay for themselves pretty quickly, and they're not as long as the best of 7 tournaments. As per usual, we're going to go ahead and start by opening 25 packs or so, just to see if we get anything else. You haven't had much luck playing the bronze tournament games? Let's see. So already getting some guys. None of these guys will play in it. Greg Holland, we get a silver in the first pack. Gross. We need some Diamond Rays or Diamond Royals to drop sometime soon. I'm trying to finish up the face of the franchise missions for the Dewey Decimals, and it's just not happening. Bergmeyer, 1984. We got Strom, lots of live stuff. Another live silver. So again, they're really quick. You can throw out, and it just takes a little bit of luck. You don't have to spend too much money on it to put a good team together. Silver next week will be a little bit different. There's not as much of a return on your smallish investment in silver. I am going to do silver defense next week, is what my plan is. But bronze, I hit bronze first just because I have a little bit more data on it, and because I think it's a little bit easier road to entry. It's a little bit easier entry into it. No Diamond Historic. Seriously, I got one over the weekend. I was pretty happy about that. I almost sold him because he's like $60,000. And so lots of people doing face of the franchise. Yeah, the auction house is a little bit rough right now. Man, these are rough. Nick Pivetta, hopefully he has a good year for the Sox this year. I'm hopeful for the Sox this season. We'll see. It's gonna be a really fun year or a really bad year, I think. Ian Anderson drops down to an iron. A little surprised about that. He's 22. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a pretty good bump this year. I think he's going to be a solid player in 2021 for the Atlanta Braves. You opened 143 packs and got 1 historical diamond. That hurts. I will say that I got really lucky over the weekend. I'll show you what we got over the weekend here in just a second. There's our first gold of the day. It's Josh Hader dropping from a diamond. It's a Reds pack. We got a double Blandino and a De Scalfini. I'm sure I butchered his name. Cahill, Patek, Don Mattingly. Here's one that might show up today. I don't know. We'll go through the list here in just a little bit. We got 15 packs left. Ian Anderson will be a gold come 2022. I don't know if it'll be a gold on release in 2022, but I think he's going to have a fantastic season for Atlanta this year. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see him bump to a gold at some point in the season. You got 2 historical diamonds in 1 pack this morning for Po Daddy. Nice job. Tom Timmerman. I like opening with packs because then I don't have to worry about them later on. Silver Gene Bearden is a duplicate. And a bunch of live junk. Bill Stafford, Mike Hargrove. More live stuff. 10 packs left. I'm also tracking on my one of my online teams is in the midst of a 14-1 streak right now, so they're playing pretty well. I've got them up on the second monitor watching them play out their games today. So we got 9 packs left. Kyle Lewis will be a high gold but fall to bronze. I don't know that Kyle Lewis is going to fall to bronze, but I don't know that he's going to keep up his performance from last year. He's a solid player, though. If anyone's sitting on Giants, Yankees, Orioles, D-backs, or Rockies, hit up Voices Only. Let's see, nothing in that pack. 7 more packs. Man, I can't wait to show you what we got this weekend. I don't know if he's going to be any good, but we shall see. Yuck. Packs are devolving into not very good. 4 left. There's a Gerald Williams. Solid bronze card, not available in today's tournament. He was at one point a solid bronze card. I think there's better stuff. Let's see. We got a gold. So 2 golds today. Both of them are lives. Yuck. And a silver Gio Urshela. 2 more, and there's a Vizquel. Man, I remember when he dropped, he changed iron completely. There were 425 diamond packs into a search without a 99 box. All right, those are our packs today. Let's show you what we got over the weekend, our new toy. Out of a standard pack, we got this fella here. Face of the franchise, David Price. So far off to a rough start, 2 games. Let up 2 earned runs. The first game was good. No strikeouts, no hits, no walks. Clean inning. Second game, not as good. 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 strikeouts. Doesn't help us. We need to finish the Rays face of the franchise to get Ted Williams. We need to finish the Royals to get the Royals face of the franchise is the one I'm really going for right now. So we can get the Walter Johnson is the one I'm really looking forward to. But David Price pitching in the bullpen for us. Yeah, it was a pretty good pull. I considered selling it, but with the rest of the cards just not, like if the other cards were on the auction house and I could buy them, then I would go for it. But for now, we're just going to hold on to them and do that. Yeah, I would probably sell the Ted. I'm a big Sox fan, but the perfect points are always nice. Let's get into bronze defense. And what are we looking at today? There's not a huge pool of players available for this tournament. It's not a very large pool, so you're going to see a lot of this. You're going to see a lot of only seven players qualified at a position. Some of them, shortstop, are going to be even less than 7 players qualified at a position. But we're going to look at the stats we're seeing for them and figure out, maybe help you guys get some perfect points out of it, maybe help you guys win some tournaments and see how we do. You just loaded your bronze defense roster so you can follow along. Nice. Hopefully we help you out today. You're only Padres diamonds away. Man, I had Tony Gwynn. I pulled Tony Gwynn out of a pack too 3 or 4 months ago. He's awesome. What an awesome card. But finishing it up for Pedro, and here, I'll show you what I'm at before we do this real quick. We are at, those are the ones I got left. Tampa Gold, Kansas City Diamond, both St. Louis Diamonds, Miami, Texas, the Mets, Milwaukee, Arizona, and San Diego. And none of them are even, I can't even find them. I troll the auction house all day long, and I just can't even find cards. And then you get like the Brujan that's like 50,000. I'm like, that's a little rough. But we'll see. Catchers. Starting off at catcher number 7 is Bob Guerin. He is your 7th most used all time. Just 596 plate appearances. So one thing you are going to see a little bit smaller sample sizes this week than we saw 2 weeks ago when we were doing the regular bronze. Just because the data's a little bit limited on this because it's only 16 team tournaments and it's only best of 7. Or best of 3. So as opposed to the big bronze and the big iron tournaments that are best of 7, you're getting 4 rounds, 28 games or whatever for the teams that play a lot. You're getting, or even more, those are 5 rounds, right? Yeah, 5 rounds. So you're getting like 35 games for the teams that play a lot. Now you're only getting three or four rounds, and 4 rounds, and then smaller So it's just a little bit of a smaller sample size. So you'll see like 216. I think I cut off the sample. I think I cut it off at 100 this week is what it's cut off at. So you're gonna have to. They're gonna have to have 100 plate appearances over the last 20, 30 tournaments or so to qualify. And at some positions, there's lots, but some of them there's less. Like Bob Guerin at number 7. He's coming in 7th in weighted on base average. He ranks 7th all time. So he's basically your worst offensive catcher and pretty bad defensively too. 24.4 caught stealing percentage. There was a brief window right after Chris dropped the last content set where there was it's I think some of it too is people are just waiting on Out of the Park 22 to come out. So hopefully, as I said, I'd say this every week, but I'm really looking for feedback. So if there's stuff that you guys want added to these things within reason, please let me know on the Discord. And so as we go forward and as we get into Out of the Park 22, I can give you guys as good of a product as I possibly can, because I think this is good information. I just want to make sure that we're doing it right and that we're getting you guys the stuff that you want. So Guerin's just not very good. 7th in weighted on base average, 7th across the board in rate stats. Sort of some power, but it's only 9, so it's not like you're going to put him in the lineup because of that. He's just not very good in this format. Pretty big splits versus righties as well. 13 points of power. A little bit of gap versus lefties, but everything else, yeah, he splits a little bit versus lefties, just a little bit more power versus righties. Guerin's just not terribly useful in this format, I don't think. Number 6 is Bob Boone. So here's your defensive guy. He's the one that gets used the most. Very good defensive catcher. Number 1 in stolen bases against per game. Number 2 in caught stealing percentage. Number 2 in catcher earned run average as well. Oh, let me bring up I almost forgot. Let's bring this stuff back up, shall we? So all time you're seeing 251, 295 on base percentage, 359 slugging, 54 OPS, 290 weighted on base average is about league average, over 204,000 plate appearances for this tournament. Home runs, little bit different than the silver snapshots last week. We're at 7.88 with just over 11 stolen bases per 600 plate appearances. It's a little bit more steal heavy, closer to the bronze and iron tournaments that we saw the 2 weeks before last week. And so that's kind of what we're looking at for the stats. As far as pitching, as far as the meta all time, we're actually seeing a lot of left-handed starting pitching here and a lot of right-handed relief pitching. So it's 70% plus in starting pitching is left-handed, whereas almost 80% of the relief pitchers are right-handed. Batting, it's mostly right-handed and switch hitters. You see a ton of switch hitters get used in these tournaments anyway. It's always a little bit of a higher rate than you'd expect based off of how many people are actually switch hitters all time. And so there's not a ton of lefties in these tournaments, which is interesting because there's so many left-handed starting pitchers. And so we'll see, or maybe it's the other way around. And the current meta is pretty close to the all-time, so it's not like people are changing, but who knows? Maybe after today that changes a little bit. Boone's offense is what it is. You know, you're going to get a guy who walks a bit. You're going to get a guy with some on-base percentage. You know, almost 2 steals. You know, he nets positive in steals right now, which is not a lot. Like, steals aren't a reason you're going to put him into the lineup, but he's a decent base runner as far as catchers in this format are concerned. But he's also the best defensive catcher in this format too, I think. Good fielding percentage, good zone rating. The arm and ability are both pretty solid, and then the 100 catcher rating is pretty good too. We'll see one other good defensive catcher on the list as we go through today, so we'll see what you guys think about that. I would have to figure out how to make a wheel, and it would have to be a separate program because this is one bloated spreadsheet right now. You'll see that when we start switching. It's pretty bloated right now. I got to figure out a better way to streamline my data for the purposes of not crashing the spreadsheet. Number 5 at catcher is Brian Harper, your 5th most used, 7th all time, just 126 plate appearances. Really terrible defensively, probably getting some designated hitter action in there. He is a pretty okay bat, 290 weighted on base average, almost 10 home runs, so right around league average in home runs per 600 plate appearances, 258 batting average for Brian Harper. Really bad at caught stealing percentage. The catcher ERA shows a 3, but that's a super small sample size, so I try to it's not terribly useful anyway. The catcher ERA, I don't factor catcher ERA into defensive calculations whatsoever. It's just there as gee whiz information for you guys to say, hey, Brian Harper is the best catcher when it comes to run suppression. That's not true. I doubt that's true. Very good at avoid Ks, okay power, decent contact gap power. Not going to ever walk. 12 walks per 600 plate appearances is, I think I could probably draw more walks than that per 600 plate appearances. But he is a decent bat, and I can see using him as a designated hitter. He does have 282 plate appearances over this reporting period, which is way more than his catcher. So it looks like people might be using him as a designated hitter slash backup catcher, perhaps, or just as a designated hitter. And I can definitely see that a 404 slugging is pretty solid in this format. It's a good 40 points over league average. So Brian Harper comes in at number 5. At number 4, once upon a time, everybody's favorite bronze catcher, Craig Biggio, has fallen off just a little bit, but he's still a pretty okay bat. But there's so many good defensive catchers that have just passed him by. People are really, really honing in on that defense at catcher. And so Biggio doesn't get used quite as much anymore. He does steal bases more than any other catcher in bronze. Once you get up to silver, you start seeing some catchers who provide everything, steal, have some defense, the petways and stuff like that in silver. But at bronze, Biggio's about all you're going to get when it comes to stealing bases as a catcher. So if you really want a base stealer at catcher, then Biggio might be a guy to go with, but he doesn't really do too much else. He does hit home runs, but his batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging are kind of middle of the pack and not really high enough for me to play him as a starting catcher. And then his defense is pretty bad. 46 arm, 46 ability, 41 catcher rating for almost 2 stolen bases against per game. He's still a decent bat, but I don't know that I use him as a starting catcher. Maybe as a designated hitter, backup catcher, something similar to what it looks like people are using Harper as. But I think Harper is just a little bit better bat for a designated hitter too. So Biggio has fallen out of favor quite a bit with the bronze players these times right now. I was a little surprised to see Lava not being the most used either. He does come in somewhere on the list though. Surhoff at number 3 is, I say that Biggio is the only one that gives you steals. Surhoff gives you some too, but not enough. Like you can see just a half. Struggled with the stolen bases over the last period, over his last 1,400 plate appearances. He is the second most used. So one thing that Surhoff does is he's kind of well-rounded. He's got the on-base percentage plus the avoid Ks, a little bit better versus right-handed pitching than versus lefties. So maybe you get into that bullpen, those heavy right-handed bullpens. Surhoff might be a late inning sub or something like that for you. Lots of plate appearances, so 7,300 all time. He's the second most used catcher. And again, he's pretty solid across the board. He's a little bit more well-rounded, I think, than say a Boone. He's not going to give you the defense of Boone, but he's going to give you some offense that Boone's not going to give you. A 283 weighted on base average, some home runs, not a ton of home runs, but he'll give you some home runs. He can run as well. All time, his stolen, this is really weird and a weird outlier to me that he only had a half a steal per 600 over the last however many tournaments this is in. And he's middle of the pack defensively, so he's pretty well-rounded. But again, people are kind of honing in on that defense right now. So let's see who's number 2. Number 2 is Lava, 84-86 catcher arm and catcher ability with 100 catcher rating, pretty similar to Boone, who is, let's go back to him real quick, 82-86. You get 2 points of catcher arm from Lava, and you get, what's Boone's? Weighted on base average is 257, while Lava is a 289. So I think he's the way to go. I'm not going to be honest. I know that the tournament says bronze defense, and so you're like, oh, defense. And everybody's go-to is Boone at that point, right, with catcher defense. But Lava's just as good defensively. He's actually number 1 in caught stealing percentage right now. Number 2 in stolen bases against per game. Pretty good base running. Suppression. With the starting pitching being heavy left-handed, you're absolutely right, Sid. I think that's probably why you're seeing Lava get used a little bit less. But even still, his numbers are pretty solid, but you're seeing maybe a little bit of a platoon. Let's go back to Boone really quickly. Yeah, Boone's a little bit better versus lefties, so you're probably seeing people platoon. I still think Lava might be just a little bit better than Boone versus lefties, but decent platoon option. A Boone and Lava platoon option is, I mean, it's the safe way to go. A Boone plus Surhoff or Boone or Lava plus Surhoff. Probably more of a Boone plus Surhoff kind of platoon, since Surhoff's just a little bit better versus righties, is probably the less safe defensive option. And so that's probably why you're seeing Lava be number 3 instead of number 2 or number 1. The comparison tool's coming. I'm gonna get to it eventually, so we can be like Boone, Lava versus blah blah blah. And again, hopefully with 22, I'm really hopeful we'll get splits, statistical splits for the tournaments. Number 1, who's your number 1 catcher? In a super small sample size, Hector Villanueva comes out at number 1. Why? Because he dropped 35 home runs per 600 plate appearances. He dropped a 356 weighted on base average, a 271 batting average, 322 on base percentage. Number 1 in every rate stat this week. He is not good defensively, but he's the only one out there that has any power. And so just number 1 offensively across the board. Just a huge week for him in 189 plate appearances. Only 681 all time. He's still number 2 all time, but he comes in at number 1. But really, I really think that it's a Boone Lava or a Boone Surhoff kind of split for you. And I think that there's either way. Chris said no tourney splits. Dang it. Hopefully this is not cutting to your 60K a week from this turn. It probably will. I don't know, boy. Maybe it'll just get more tournaments to run and you'll win more. So that's your catchers. I don't think Villanueva is the number 1 catcher. I know we talk about this all the time, but I really think that it's a Boone plus Surhoff or Lava kind of platoon for you at catcher. First baseman, we had. See, you can see that little hiccup there where it's like, I'm going to think for just a second. We had 7 first basemen qualify. Number 7 was Orlando Merced. Not very good defensively. He is actually 5th in zone rating, 7th in fielding percentage, 7th offensively. Got 1,700 plate appearances all time, 424 over this sample size, but just doesn't really do anything that almost every other first baseman on this list does a little bit better. He is 3rd in stolen bases with 3 per 600 plate appearance. So, I mean, if 2 all time. I mean, if that's what you want out of your first baseman, I don't think Merced is probably the right option at first base in this format. At number 6 is Dave Stapleton. He plays first base and second base. We're going to see him on this list again. Very, very good versus left-handed pitching. So with that heavy left-handed pitching starting rotation stuff going on, Stapleton becomes an interesting candidate. Again, he's lower on first base. He's going to be higher on second base. So we're going to kind of skip over him for now. He did have 100 plate appearances as a first baseman, but I don't think he's your starting first baseman either. Number 5 is Pat Tabler, who's the number 1 most used all time at first base. So no splits. He can play every single day. Well, he's got 12 points of I and avoid Ks, but it's versus lefties, so that's good. We have good splits here. And 1 point of contact. Does lose a little bit of power, but I look at in a format where you're seeing not a ton of home runs, I think that the I and avoid K becomes a little bit more important than the 8 points of power. But if you're really just looking to get that 1 or 2 more home runs, he's right around league average in home runs per 600. Actually, maybe a little bit above. A little bit above league average in home runs per 600, and plays decent defense. Okay range. The error of 51 is pretty solid for a first baseman at bronze level with a 75 first base rating. It looks like all but 200 of his plate appearances are at first base. So he might be getting a little bit of left field, a little bit of third base, but not very much at either of those positions. Solid guy who can play every day is Pat Tabler. He is the most used. Let's check out who's next. Number 4 is Mike Marshall. So here's your second most used all-time first baseman, and you can see right away why Tabler's probably getting used a little bit more than him. You got the big splits versus the big power split versus righties, but you got a little bit better avoid K. The power of 64 against left-handed pitching for him, 71 gap power. The 64 power, the 16 points of power that you lose is a little bit big, but not huge. Also, 54 range, 44 error is a little bit lower than Tabler, and a 94 defense at first base is Marshall. Again, if Marshall was listed as a first baseman, I really think he's probably a silver card. But because he's listed as a right fielder and his defense in right field is so bad, he sticks at bronze. And so he's a good defensive option at first base. He's a good potential platoon with Tabler at first base, but I don't think he is so bad versus lefties that you can't play him every day if you choose to. If you can platoon them, then great. If it's a position that you feel like you can fit a platoon at, but I think Marshall, either one of these guys can really play every day versus lefties or righties, in my opinion. At number 3 is Dan Dreesen, over a 300. We didn't even talk about his stats. So number 1 in slugging percentage among first basemen, number 2 in home runs. So we'll see who's first in home runs. We haven't seen number 1 yet. Doesn't really run. Will strike out a bit. Will not walk very much either. So it's all a bat. It's all batting with him. The on-base percentage is pretty low, so not great for on-base percentage. You can see Tabler was at 3rd in on-base percentage. Marshall does hit home runs, though. He is a very good power hitter. Hey, babe. Number 3 is Dreesen, who's your number 1 in home runs, 2nd in weighted on base average all time. Let's see, 327 weighted on base average for this period, 425 and 23 home runs per 600 plate appearances. Dreesen does not play defense very well, though. This is the range plus the error. I know that Marshall has a lower error rating than this, but the combination of range plus error plus pretty bad first base rating makes me kind of shy away from Dreesen. I know it's first base, and so we're like, it's first base. What are you going to do? But if you have a first baseman who can prevent the throwing errors, and that's useful. Dreesen is also a heavy split versus right-handed pitching, so he will not play every day, which is why you're seeing him only have 1,300 plate appearances or so. Really solid bat, especially against right-handed pitching. So again, if you're looking for a guy who, if you're okay with this defense, then that's a bat that'll fit in your lineup. I think he's pretty comparable to Marshall as a bat, maybe even a little bit better when you combine his speed as well. And so Dreesen comes in at number 3. At number 2 is Sid Bream. Here we go. So a 24 error rating is terrifying to me at first base. Bream is your 4th most used. 300 plate appearances this time. He dropped a 316 weighted on base average, mid-teens in home runs, which is probably about what you can expect from him. Again, heavy splits versus righties. So I think that as you look at these guys, a lot of them are really heavy righty splits. And so if you're going to run a platoon, that's why I think Tabler becomes really useful, because he can play every day. And against lefties, he's probably a little bit better against lefties than most of these other guys. Bream is okay. He's a good base runner as well. Decent defense except for the error. He is a pull ground ball hitter, but a normal fly ball trends. A normal hitter. Let's see. We got 4th in on-base percentage, 2nd in slugging for him. A lot of that comes from the doubles. He's a double heavy guy. Again, his splits aren't so bad that I think he's unplayable against lefties. I just think there's other guys who are probably a little bit better out there than Sid Bream. This is obviously the 1986 and not that later on one, who was chugging around the bases for the Braves. And at number 1 at first base, we have Keith Hernandez. A little bit of a lefty split here in contact and gap. Loses a little bit of power, a little bit of eye, and a little bit of void case versus, actually, his only higher one versus lefties is his gap. Really good defensively. Probably the best defensive first baseman, I think. I know that he's grading out second, but we talk a lot, let's not do that, about defense and how inaccurate it is in these tournaments and how I don't use it very much, except for the ones who are clear outliers. Hernandez with number 1 in weighted on base average, number 1 in OPS, 9 home runs. He's going to be a serious on-base candidate, though. 284 batting average, 353 on-base percentage. Solid singles and doubles, guys. It's not a huge split. It is 16 points of I, so he's not going to walk as much versus lefties. But I can see a Tabler Hernandez platoon. I can see we're seeing a Marshall Hernandez platoon up here. Marshall DHs versus righties. David Donovan loves Stapleton's bat. He crushes lefties. Defense isn't great at second, so it doesn't make too much sense to put him there. Wonder why he isn't getting run at first more. I'm going to guess he probably is. So one of the things, I bring it up probably once a week. I'm going to guess that Stapleton is getting used more than this at first base. It's just, so all I get is, I don't get to factor in specific plate appearances at a position. It's just what people list him at. So I'm going to guess that people are playing him at first base and just not swapping him to a first baseman when they set their lineups. So for those of you who haven't seen my streams before, what you can do is you can go in here, and so let's find say Eddie Matthews. I can go here and I can set his position as a first baseman. And so whatever that's set at is what I pull down. And so I'm pretty sure that's why he's getting so few. I think that he probably gets played at first base more than he does at second base. I could be way off my rocker on that. This is the data that I have, but that's just kind of what I feel like we're probably seeing here from Stapleton. He does mash versus lefties. He is really, really good versus lefties. And so who is number 1 again? 3, 2, 1. Number 1 was Keith Hernandez. So those are your first basemen. It might be a quick stream today because we just don't have all that many people to talk about. And so let's move on to second baseman, where we will see Dave Stapleton again. We had 7 qualifiers. And you can see right off the bat, part of why I think that's true too is that you're seeing 3 guys with 7,000 plate appearances here. There's not 3 guys that get used that much here at second base, and so that's why I get the feeling that Stapleton's seeing a lot more time at first base than what is being accounted for. So if you happen to see my team in a tournament with you, please just switch their position to whatever they're playing as well, and it'll help out with our data. It'll help out with all the data that we get. We had 7 qualifying second basemen. We do have 8 qualifying all time. The one that we're missing is looks like probably Flannery is the one that we're not accounting for. Tony Phillips comes in at number 7. He is number 6 defensively. 5th in weighted on base average, 7th in slugging, OPS, batting average. Not really any home runs, doesn't really run the bases really well, isn't great defensively. I could talk about him more, but I just don't think that. I think people are seeing the splits versus lefties and saying, oh, there's a lot of lefties. I just don't think Tony Phillips is good enough to play that much. He's okay, not great. But I think that there are definitely better options out there. Let's see, at Voice is only same here around 8 to 10 p.m. What's the difference with all-time, current, and weekly? So down here, so this is all of the tournaments I have since I redid the spreadsheet, which was probably about 2 months ago. This week I'm going back to 9,000, tournament 9,000 on this, I think. And so I parse out the data from the last week or so of tournaments. It's not exact, so it's not like I'm not trying to split hairs here or anything. But basically it's basically from last week, the tournaments that I started last week after I finished Silver Snapshots. So this is for Perfect Team. Yes, this is Perfect Team. This is tournaments. So this is your Bronze Defense tournaments, Breeze. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. And so Tony Phillips comes in at number 7. I think there's better options defensively. I think there's, if you're really looking for offense out of your second baseman, I think there's probably better options for that too. Number 6 is Manny Trio, who I think is one of those options that's a little bit better offensively and not that much worse defensively, if not better. 78 range, 81 double play. The arm is second baseman, 66 error for Phillips. It's close. They're pretty close. They're pretty similar defensively, Manny Trio and Tony Phillips. I think Trio's bat is slightly better. I like the avoid K's contact and gap, but he doesn't have a lot of speed to make that worthwhile either, so that's a little bit of an issue too. And the eye, so he's not going to walk very much, which is going to hurt his on-base percentage for Manny Trio. Fourth in weighted on base average all time. He does rank fourth all time as opposed to sixth this week, but a 267 weighted on base average. He's showing third defensively. I don't think that's necessarily true either, but we'll check out the other guys as we go through the rest of the list. A little bit more power than you're seeing out of Tony Phillips. Just not much, but a little bit. And again, that's not 7 home runs isn't a reason I'm going to put a guy in the lineup. The base running's okay, not great, kind of middle of the pack. And I don't think his defense is good enough at second base to be an everyday player for Manny Trio. It is a card that I like against lefties, though. Number 5 is Ryne Sandberg, 82, 78, 85, and 79 on your defensive ratings with a 96 second base rating. He's grading out as your number 1 defensive second baseman in this tournament format. And so we'll see if we agree with that. He might be, but I know he's better than Bachmann, but Bachmann's bat is very useful. We'll see what Oster looks like when we get to Oster, but Sandberg is grading out as number 1. Offensively, he's not very good. So 6th in weighted on base average, a little bit of home runs, 9.89, 12 steals. So he is a good base runner, is Ryne Sandberg, with pretty good defense to go along with it. Sandberg comes in at number 5. 3rd in WAR over this reporting period, 4th all time, but right in line with his this week. So he ranks 6th all time. The bat is not very good. The defense, we'll see. We'll see what some of the other guys on the list look like. Keep in mind the range and the error. 82, 79, 85 with a second base rating of 96. At number 4, here's Wally Bachmann. So Bachmann has heavy right-handed splits, so I think he's probably getting platooned with, I'm going to guess Ron Oster is who he's getting platooned with. Pretty heavy splits, really solid base runner. He's going to be the number 2 steals among second basemen. He won't strike out very much. Good avoid Ks, good eye combination to go along with good speed and base running ability. It makes him a really, really useful bat. He's number 2 in weighted on base average. He's number 2 in OPS. 2nd in average and on-base percentage. Pretty good in slugging at 3rd. It's all singles and doubles for him. He's not going to hit home runs for you. So he can play DH, yes. So Bachmann will play DH as well. And so you're probably seeing some of these plate appearances are probably as a designated hitter too. I don't know where else. I'm going to guess that people are listing him as a DH. And that's why we're losing that. He's not going to play any other position. So when you get a free drop, it'll pop up and say claim your drop, or you can click on your profile and then claim it through there as well. Let's see, 287 batting average. Pretty good, pretty solid all time at 286. He is your 3rd most used, but again, I think there's some designated hitter stuff going on there too. And so I wouldn't necessarily look at that. He is bad defensively at second base. He's not very good defensively at second base. So that's where I think he's really getting used as a designated hitter versus right-handed pitching, where he does really well. He's a decent designated hitter option in open bronze tournaments as well. You thought it would automatically go into your account. It used to do that. This is a pretty recent change. Boyer DHs Bachmann versus righties. Yeah, I can absolutely see that as a thing. Unfortunately, he gets listed as a second baseman, so he pops up on this list. At number 3, Dave Stapleton. Again, we talked a little bit about him. I think that you're seeing some designated hitter action here. I think you're probably seeing some first base action here as well. He's a decent defensive first baseman with a solid bat versus lefties, which is heavy in this tournament. I don't like Stapleton as a second baseman, so I really do think that a lot of these plate appearances are as a first baseman and a designated hitter. He is a solid bat, but I'm not going to harp on that too much. You just went and switched all your positions to where you're actually awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. And so hopefully that's a thing that starts happening a little bit more often, and maybe I can get better defensive data out of that. Number 2 is Oster. Here's your defensive guy. Splits versus righties, so he's not great versus lefties. He got a 62-56 contact and gap, 4 power, 31 eye. Okay, steals. The defense is okay. I'm a little bit surprised to see him getting used so much more than Sandberg, to be totally honest. He's grading out second defensively. We got 80 range, 76 error, 76 arm. Let's go back to Sandberg real quick. So 82, 79, 85, and 96. His bat's a little bit better, I guess, than Sandberg. Well, it's definitely better than Sandberg. And so they're pretty comparable defensively, and Oster's got a better bat. Let's see. Back to Sandberg real quick. 49, 55, 48, 59, 62, 56. Yeah, and he's a switch hitter. So you're seeing that switch hitter thing going on here where people and he can play every day, right? So he loses a little bit of avoid Ks versus lefties, but everything else is pretty much the same. The 8 points of eye, it's just 1 point of gap, 6 points of contact. So it's not such a huge split that he can't play every day, and he's going to provide pretty solid defense and be able to run just a little bit. I don't know that I'd have him stealing very much. I know this steal is really high, so he's not gonna get thrown out too much, but he's also not fast enough to where I think I'd necessarily have him stealing in my strategy. Good option at second base. I think he plays defense and hits okay. 284 weighted on base average is pretty solid among second basemen at this point. It's a little bit below league average, but it's right in the middle, and he's going to give you better defense than the guys who are giving you better offensive stuff too, at a position that I consider pretty important. Not quite shortstop center field important, but second base is pretty important. At number 1, Mike Sharperson comes in at number 1. Interesting. So Sharperson, let's talk about him real quick. Again, I don't know that I play him at second base. Maybe third base, but even still, that defense is kind of atrocious. But the bat is really, really good, especially against lefties. So you're seeing 75 contact, 65 gap, a little bit of power, 62 eye, 73 avoid Ks versus lefties. Not a ton of speed. This is a tough one, guys. Maybe I'm going to guess that he's seeing some designated hitter stuff too. Sharperson's your designated hitter versus left-handers. Yeah. So I think what we're looking at here at second base is Oster plus his backup, whoever you're going to pick, whether it's Sandberg or Bachmann, and then these other guys. You got Sharperson as a potential designated hitter. What a weird format. Sharperson as a designated hitter option, Bachmann as a DH option, Stapleton as a DH option at second base, which is a little bit weird. You don't see too many tournament formats where second base has your most DH options. So that's your second baseman. I think Oster's probably the number 1, probably my starting second baseman now that I look at it a little bit more. And then let's see, so versus lefties, and then maybe Sharperson with Bachmann as my versus right designated hitter, or Stapleton. So it's kind of up to you guys which one you want to use. Both of them are pretty solid. Sharperson looks really good. Sharperson's putting up really, really solid offensive numbers with a 344 weighted on base average, 294 average, 360 on base percentage, 346 all-time on base percentage. Solid looking stuff from Sharperson. He's your lefty DH, so might be a lot. Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing. It's not, second base isn't usually where you see most of your designated hitters come out of, but it appears that that's the case in this format. Third base, we had 5 qualify. Oh, look, Mike Sharperson. A little bit of play at third base, maybe as a backup third baseman, but I think he's more of a designated hitter. We're not going to harp on him too much. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is Ken Oberkfell, and let me tell you, Oberkfell versus righties is an absolute beast. He's a really good defensive third baseman. I don't know which Terry Pendleton this is yet. We'll see when we get there. He's a pretty decent defensive third baseman. This is definitely ratings and defense that I can live with at third base. He is your most used. Against righties, he's really solid. I know in open bronze tournaments, I have seen him put up some stupid numbers at times. The combination of a void K, ground ball hitter, and pretty decent speed to go along with it it has really made him do, when he is hot, he can carry your team to tournaments. The problem is, with 70% of this tournament being against left-handed pitching, it becomes a little bit, he's not nearly as good versus lefties as he is against righties. And so he's still okay, but he's not going to put up silly numbers in a tournament format like this. Does steal some bases at third baseman, doesn't, not any home runs, but the on-base percentage of 290 is okay, with pretty good defense. 340 slugging is a little below league average. 279 weighted on base average. He's just not going to play enough versus right-handed pitching to get the numbers that you can see out of him if you can platoon him. I bet if you platoon him, he's going to be awesome, though. I've seen him have full tournaments where he hits like 600. 600 batting average. He's done some silly things. At number 3 is Terry Pendleton. So this is your bronze Terry Pendleton, your 64 rated Pendleton, the 1984 rookie sensation. Solid versus lefties. You're seeing fourth and weighted on base average, 299, which is well above league average. Solid slugging percentage at 379. You got a 275 batting average. Everything's about 10 to 20 points above league average for Terry Pendleton. And versus lefties, you got pretty good splits versus lefties. He's looking pretty solid. Good base runner. Number 2 in net steals. I imagine he's probably closer to this. I think that there's some steal suppression going on this week that hasn't been here long term, and so you're seeing about 6. Again, there's very few players in this format that I would throw in the lineup because of their steals, and I wouldn't throw Pendleton into the lineup because he steals bases. You're gonna have to be happy with these splits versus lefties. Almost unplayable versus righties. Not quite unplayable versus righties, but pretty close. And the defense is okay. I think Oberkfell is definitely, clearly a better option defensively, but again, we saw the splits. Platoon option? Perhaps. You have 4 guys who are naturally listed as second baseman on your roster. Yeah, it looks like a trend here in the bronze defense. At number 2, Todd Zeal comes in at number 2. Let's see, what do we think about Zeal? 63 contact versus 62. 67 versus 69, 60 power versus 54, 55 I, 5 points of avoid K. Zeal's a guy you can play against both lefties and righties. He's actually got some reverse split stuff going on here. He's a right-handed batter that looks like he's slightly better versus right-handed pitching. The defense isn't great, so maybe as a designated hitter, but again, it's third base too, so the arm is okay. The error is kind of terrifying. The third base rating is not my favorite, but third in weighted on base average as a third baseman among third basemen, second in on base percentage, second in slugging, second in home runs. So he does give you some power that the better defenders don't give you. The Oberkfell, the Terry Pendleton don't really give you, but the defense is pretty scary. Let's look at our number 1. I'm happy about this. This is a card I haven't seen in forever. Pagliarulo. I don't think he's a starting third baseman here. I really don't. This versus lefties, he's almost unplayable versus lefties, but I think if you can find a way to platoon him with Pendleton, he becomes a pretty solid option. I'm guessing that most of this is versus righties. Second in weighted on base average, first in slugging, 13 home runs per 600, just under 12 all time. Pags was a solid option early on when I started doing these streams back in last May or June or something. He was an okay option early on, and I haven't seen this card at all in forever, but he is a pretty solid defensive card. I do think that Oberkfell is better. Unfortunately, I think that Oberkfell is just too much better versus righties, and he's pretty comparable defensively to Pagliarulo to make that call as well. I think it's probably a Pendleton, Oberkfell, Pendleton, Zeal, or Zeal running out there every day is probably your best bets here at third base. I'm happy to see Pags. I just don't think that he's necessarily one of your true good options here at third base for this tournament format. So again, solid defensively. I think Oberkfell's just a little bit better defensively, and he's better versus righties too. So sadly, happy to see him, but I think it's just because there's such a limited number of cards in this format that he ends up on the list. So there you go. Only 225 plate appearances. It's probably me using him. I don't even know. And so shortstops. Let's do shortstops really quickly. We had 3. Bill Allman is your number 2 most used. 67 range, 62 arm, 62 turn double play, 54 rating at shortstop. Hits versus lefties. Solid bat versus lefties. Good contact, good power. The I and avoid Ks aren't very good, but you need a backup shortstop, and there's very, very few in this format that can play there. And so 69, 73, 90, decent base running to go along with it. He comes in at number 3. But number 2 in weighted on base average. This is going to crack you guys up. Number 2, I totally disagree. You're probably going to want to use Ozzy Smith. But his bat is pretty bad. Let's not try to argue with that. His bat has always been kind of not great, but he's the best defensive shortstop, maybe all the way up to gold level formats. And so Ozzy Smith is really the option at shortstop here. And so again, 222 average, 274 on base percentage, 311 slugging, 261 weighted on base average. The zone rating, he's the only one that gets used here. So it's not like you don't have the other guys that he plays against to inflate his zone rating up to the 20s or 30s that you see when you're doing open bronze or whatever. But you can see negative 71 zone rating for Bill Allman. And you know, the ratings don't look that bad, but they're bad compared to that. At what I consider the most important defensive position, it's we talk about it a little bit on stream, and once every now and then Ozzy goes crazy. And if you face a team with a lot of right-handed pitching, then Ozzy can hit pretty well. That 63 I, 83 avoid Ks, but everything else is kind of, he's either hitting doubles or doing nothing for you. And he burns bases. He can run as well. So when he gets on base, he's a prototypical number 9 hitter, in my opinion. He doesn't get on base very often, but when he does, he's a really solid base runner. So I think that you had him at 8 or 9 in your order, and he just plays awesome defense. And every now and then he's going to win a tournament for you with his bat. So number 1 is Jeff Kunkel. We might see him at other positions later on. Again, 716 plate appearances. He's probably getting some backup action in as a defensive substitute, but 2,900 plate appearances all time. Yeah, it's definitely as like a backup substitute, and he hits pretty well versus lefties. So it's Ozzy at shortstop is the option here in these bronze defense tournaments. And I know each tournament has like 1 or 2 guys that I'm like, this is the guy that you have to be putting out there. In, iron tournaments, it's like Steve Lyons in center field. Here, it's Ozzy Smith at shortstop. He's just too much better than everybody else. There's just not another option, I don't think, unless anybody has somebody hidden that they probably don't want to talk about here. How long have we been up for? We've been up for an hour. We got through the shortstops. I'm going to take a quick break, refresh my coffee, and then we'll be back momentarily with the outfielders and the pitchers. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. This is a lot more fun when there's a ton of you guys here, and we get to chat a lot. So we will be... was that me? I don't have control over that. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes, so bear with me for a moment. All right, we are back. Teddy's got 2 bottles of water. I got one here too. Actually, I've got 2 here and a Coke if I need to switch to it. So we'll see how the rest of the stream goes. Let's see if we have more people to talk about. Left field first. We had 4 qualifying left fielders. Phil Plantier comes in at number 4, 257 weighted on base average, 581 OPS. Not great defensively, 5th all-time defensively out of 5 defensive left fielders. I wouldn't play him. He's got backup left field, backup right field. I think that left field's another position that people are pretty much dead set on one particular person, and so we'll see where he comes out. One thing that Plantier does that other people don't really do is hit home runs. Unfortunately, he doesn't really hit against left-handed pitching. A little bit more power versus lefties, but again, it's kind of I think he's probably seen a lot of time as a backup. Not defensive, but left fielder and right fielder. He's probably seen a little bit more time as a right fielder than as a left fielder, would be my guess. 470, 849 total. So it's about half and half. And so he is what he is. I wish this card was better. Phil Plantier was one of those guys who had that batting stance that I emulated when I was, well, we won't say how old I was in 1991, but as a Red Sox fan, he definitely had that stance that we liked. He was a fun player to watch in left field in right field for the Red Sox way back when. At number 3, from the Chicago Cubs, 1985 one-hit wonder Thad Bosley. Also pretty heavy right-handed splits. Also, we'll have a coffee in about an hour. I'm on number 3. This will be my last one today. I'd like to sleep tonight at some point. Number 2 in weighted on base average, 2nd in OPS, 2nd in slugging, 3rd in on base percentage among left fielders, 3rd in batting average at 218. He's your 3rd most used left fielder. I'm gonna guess as it looks like almost all of his plate appearances are as a left fielder. So one thing to keep in mind is that while the fatigue is still a thing here, there's not nearly as many games. So you're not looking at like 5 rounds of tournaments and seven games per round. So the backups don't become quite as important. But Bosley's got decent splits versus righties with some good base running ability. The speed's not very good. 1,500 plate appearances, backup left field, backup right field. There's just, again, only so many options here that you can pull out at left field, and so he's okay defensively, kind of whatever. It's left field. I like his bat versus righties. I won't lie. I think this looks like a pretty decent bat against right-handed pitching. I don't think he'd be my everyday starter, but perhaps as a platoon option versus right-handed pitching, I should say. So we'll see what Vince Coleman looks like when we get there. Pat Tabler, who can play every day. We saw him at first base. He gets a little bit of play in left field. Looks like 164 plate appearances here, 845 all time. So it looks like just as a backup left fielder. And so we've already looked at his bat. He does grade out as a really solid bat against the pitching in these tournaments. He's number 1 in weighted on base average, number 2 in on base percentage, number 1 in batting average, number 1 in slugging. But our number 1 left fielder is Vince Coleman. Number 1 in on base percentage, number 3 in weighted on base average. So it's all singles, but he's the best base runner in the format, I think. 48 steals per 600 plate appearances. He single-handedly brings up the net stolen base number by himself, I think. Like, there's very few guys in any of these lower level formats that single-handedly affect the numbers, like the underlying numbers. But I think that Coleman gets used so much and steals so many bases that you're probably, outside of Coleman, you're probably looking at something closer to 8 or 9 stolen bases per 600 plate appearances, if I had to guess. Doesn't strike out too much, walks quite a bit, super heavy walk driven on base percentage. He's your left fielder. I think that he's the best option for left field in this format, and I don't think it's particularly close. I don't necessarily think that's true in open bronze, as we saw a couple weeks ago. I still think he's a solid option over there, but I don't think he's the this is the guy you have to use in this format. I think in this format, he's the best left fielder option, and I think that he's the guy. He's the left fielder. He's the guy at left field. Second time. What reset on you? What did I miss, Jay Mallet? Happened on October 29th as well. Here it is. Other than your team, what other teams have collected most data? What other teams have you collected the most data from this format? I guess Humboldt is number 2. So I don't. That's not something I'm tracking right now. Mallet is the other teams. I have it on there, and I download the other teams that are in there, but I don't really look at it all that much. Scroll all the way back down. The tourney IDs reset a second time. Yeah, so they go back to 0, and we're at like a couple hundred right now, I think, is what we're at, maybe at 1,000. So that's something that I'm going to have to worry about when we it's not something I've had to worry about too much because I tend to completely redo the spreadsheets and start over at some point before the reset catches back up to me. I think that if we go here, I've got time. So the 6,000 tournaments are the earliest tournaments I have on this spreadsheet, and so I've got a little bit of time before I have to start worrying about the tournament IDs. And so Coleman comes in at number 1 in left field. In center field, we had 8 qualifiers. Jeff Leonard comes in at number 8. It does look like people have made up their mind on who they want to use in this format. We'll see if we agree with all of you. Weighted on base average of 198 over this period for Jeff Leonard. That is pretty spectacularly bad. 268 all time has him number 7th, which is still pretty bad, but not spectacularly bad like a 198. Yikes. 212 batting average, 9th all time in on base percentage. The defense isn't good enough to use him on top of that. So he does play left field and center field. So maybe back up. And he does have, he looks like he should be okay versus left-handed pitching. The problem you run into, I think, is that he's a fly ball hitter in a format that doesn't necessarily have a ton of power. He had a really, really, really bad performance this week. Normally he's at about 15 home runs per 600. This is bad. This is really bad. I don't think this is what you can expect out of Jeffrey Leonard if you use him. To be totally honest, you're probably going to get a mid 250s, 275 weighted on base average, low teens home runs if you're looking for that. And he's an okay base runner too. So if you play him as like a backup left field, center field, first baseman, then maybe I can see playing him like that. But looks like he's always listed as a center fielder. He's not a starting center fielder. Andy Van Slyke, your 8th most used center fielder, gets used more in right field, so we'll talk about him there instead. But he does grade out 7th among center fielders. A lot of that is because he's not a great defensive center fielder. At number 6 is Kirby Puckett, your best defensive center fielder. Number 1, it's not even really particularly close. And I think that his defense alone in this format makes him really, really usable. His bat, as with open bronze, is not very good. He does get a ton of WAR based off of his defense, so keep that in mind. 6 WAR all time. Will not hit home runs. His on-base percentage is pretty bad at 278. He's not a great base runner, although he's good enough. Like he's a solid base runner. The batting average is okay. He's 3rd in batting average, but everything else, like there's just no power. There's no doubles. He's going to need a lot of help to be useful as an offensive player. He is far and away the best defensive center fielder in the format. So if you can get offense from other positions, then having Puckett in center field and Ozzy Smith at shortstop is definitely an option if you're looking straight up defense. It is called the bronze defense format. So, but it does use modern statistics and modern strategies. So keep that in mind too as you're going through. He comes in at number 6. But again, he's the best defensive guy. It's a pretty solidly bad bat, as it is in open bronze. He hits tons of home runs if you can make it to game 6 of a series. At number 5 is Dave Gallagher, who is a 64 range, of really solid error rating in center field. He's got 1,400 plate appearances as a center fielder. The bat is okay, 316 weighted on base average. Second in batting average, third in on-base percentage, fifth in home runs among center fielders, and third in strikeouts and fourth in walks. It's a solid bat that plays not very good defense in center field. Backup center fielder / right fielder, perhaps. 2,600 plate appearances all time. It looks like he's getting some use as a right fielder as well as a center fielder. So that's Dave Gallagher for you. Only 349 plate appearances as a center fielder is... everybody's using Puckett. I'm really interested to see Nixon when we get to him. Oh, there he is. Otis Nixon. He's grading out at a -8 zone rating per 162. I don't think... We're going to look at the rest of these guys too. I don't think he's the 7th best defensive outfielder. I think he's probably top half-ish. Offensively, you've got a 283 batting average, which is number 1, 276 all-time, which is well above the all-time average of 251. On base percentage of 327, 314 all-time. Does have some steals, pretty good base runner in there as well. 3 home runs, kind of okay. Fifth in weighted on base average at 301. So how many points on Puckett is that? That's 50 points of weighted on base average over Puckett. 293, 261. Looks like 30 points or so all time. Obviously, the defense isn't quite Kirby Puckett. It's not even really close. And so, let's see. Both bottles, 34 ounces of water, 36 ounces of coffee. Yikes. Yeah, that hopefully that's... Or the coffee is going to dehydrate you by noontime. And so Nixon is obviously not as good defensively as Puckett. The bat is a little bit better, but 75 center field rating, 47 right field rating. Looks like splits lean towards versus lefties. Just a little bit, not a ton, and good base running to go along with it. I think that Nixon's closer to Puckett than anybody is to Vince Coleman or Ozzy Smith. I don't think that Nixon is... I don't think that those two guys are so useful I don't think Puckett is so useful from his defense in center field that it makes Nixon unusable, to be totally honest. So we'll see. Let's see who number 3, 2, and 1 are. Number 3 is Jeff Kunkel, who we saw at shortstop. I would not play him at shortstop. Saw him a little bit at second base. He's got decent outfield range, decent center field rating. He's grading out third in center field. Splits versus lefties, 1 point of contact, 8 points of gap. Power splits the other way. Again, a little bit of a reverse split here in his eye and in his power for Jeff Kunkel. So we will solid backup option, maybe as a pinch hitter. He's putting out the number 4 weighted on base average among center fielders, number 3 slugging. Does hit some home runs, something not a lot of center fielders do. Now I'm really curious to see who's higher up on this list. Number 2 is Mitch Webster. 70 outfield range, 78 outfield error, 52 center field rating. He's grading out number 6. But number 1 with the bat. Holy smokes, 91 power versus left-handed pitching. This defense is bad enough that I'm going to say don't play him as a starting pitcher or as a starting center fielder, but that's some power there. Not going to lie. The avoid Ks for Kunkel is scary. Let's go back. Yeah, the avoid Ks is really scary. He's going to be 9th. So 134 strikeouts in this format is a ton. It's not as, we saw some 250s last week, but this is a different format. And so that is a lot of strikeouts. And so the combination of I and avoid K makes Kunkel pretty scary to me. It's a pretty bad combination. He's plays multiple positions, so I can see use for him as a utility kind of backup player, but he's just not very good at any of those positions, and so I don't see him getting used too much more. I really think it's right now, based off of what I'm seeing, it's between Puckett and Nixon in center field. Even though Kunkel has some splits versus lefties, That the I plus avoid K combination is a killer. Webster's not much better. So Webster with a 38 I, 52 avoid Ks. The 52 is a little bit better. So he says your favorite defense punted roster option, says oof. I wouldn't play either any of these guys as starting pitchers either. I could see Webster putting up some silly numbers against left-handed pitching, but he's also not going to be very good defensively in center field. Maybe as a right fielder. I'm going to be honest. I don't know that I would be totally against playing him as a right fielder versus left-handed pitching in a left-handed pitching heavy format. You're seeing 20 home runs per 600, number one in on-base percentage at 328, OPS, weighted on-base average at 774, 340. Had a good week. Let's be honest there. It was way higher than what he normally is, which is still pretty solid, but not as spectacular as what we're seeing over here. So it looks like Webster has a tendency to be hot or cold and can really, really light it up when he's on. No way that average holds up over time. 32 arm in right field is scary. Yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely closer to 240, 250 batting average than a 274. That's just a really solid 228 plate appearance sample size for Mitch Webster. So we're still between Puckett and Nixon in center field. At number 1, Devon White at number 1. Let's see. He's listed as 310 plate appearances all time as a center fielder, 160 plate appearances over this sample size. So admittedly, not a huge sample size as a center fielder. He is grading out second defensively, which I can see, grading out behind Puckett defensively. 91 range, 91 center field rating makes him an interesting option. Offensively, we're seeing a 250 to 260 batting average, a 315 weighted on base average. Fourth in steals at just over 10 steals per 600 plate appearances. So, I really think Devon White is a guy that you're going to want in your lineup somewhere, and where you play him is kind of up to you. I think he's playable in center field. I think he's probably a little bit better defensively than Otis Nixon. If we go back and look at Nixon, we've got 83, 77 error, 75 center field rating. He's definitely better defensively in center field than Otis Nixon. We've got 59, 60, 75. Another guy with an I and avoid K's combination that's a little bit scary. The 48 is close. I like to see at least 50, and so the 48 is close to 50. It is a lefty-heavy format. We're going to see him a little bit more with a little bit more of a sample size in right field for Devon White. I don't think you're necessarily wrong to use any one of these three guys in center field. I think White is going to be the better offensive player out of the three of them. But I think Nixon's avoid K is going to help him to be close to Devon White in that respect. White's going to give you a little bit of power that those other two guys don't. All three of them can run just a little bit. Let's see. Nixon is a good base stealer. Where's Puckett? Puckett runs just a little bit. They're both going to be better base runners. So maybe it is Puckett in center field. But I don't think you can necessarily be wrong by. What's up, Bailey? Good to see you. Devon is a home run beast. Not sure how he plays in this format. So this is what we're seeing is about 24. He's one of the few guys that's above 20 home runs, and it's definitely lefty-heavy format. So he's going to be more useful here than he is in like open bronze, I think. With good defense, I think you can play any of those three. I think any of those three. I think Puckett is really solid defensively, but White's right behind him. Nixon lags behind a little bit defensively, but Nixon's on-base skills plus base running is going to be helpful too. That's tough. Center field's tough, guys. Center field's a little bit of tough. How do I track what position they're playing? Do I just count? Yeah, so I really just count on players. It's really about who you guys are listing them as Bisniff. That's the only way that I can do that. Because otherwise, I don't have time to pull out individual position ratings. In fact, I'm not even sure that it tracks individual positions for tournaments. So that's all that I can do is I rely on you guys to put them at the position you have them at. So that's why, like, I think White probably has more than 300 plate appearances all time as a center fielder. But another thing is that you can play him as a backup at either of these positions too. So if you wanna bounce him between center field and right field, because he's gonna play versus righties too. Let's see. Boyer says he's got a right field platoon of McBride and Nixon. Interesting. I don't know if we're going to see McBride on the right field list. Let's find out. McBride is 7th, so we'll see where he pops up. We'll see if he shows up on the list. He's 3rd this time, 3rd over the most recent week, so we shall see. Phil Plantier comes in at number 9. We talked about him a little bit. He's going to hit some home runs. The avoid Ks is a little bit scary in a format that still it's bronze. It is still bronze, so it does run a little bit heavy stuff. So the avoid K is a little bit low. I do consider avoid Ks before I. Personally, I don't like both of them being low, but if I'm going to choose one, it's going to be I. I'd prefer my I being low than my avoid Ks. Plantier is going to hit home runs and play okay defense in right field. The arm is really not good. 53 rating. I don't see Plantier getting too much play over what we've seen. I think he's better as a left fielder. Even though his right field rating is 53, I think he's a little bit better as a left fielder than as a right fielder. But he is going to hit some home runs, 20 home runs per 600 plate appearances for Plantier. Number 8 is Glenn Wilson. Defensive player, 71 range, 75 arm, 85 error with an 81 rating in right field. This is a card I've not honestly seen before. 1,700 plate appearances all time as a right fielder. This might be. I usually leave around 105 to 110. I might be done in time today. Let's see. So the bat doesn't look like it's playing up very well. No ratings over here are terribly high. I know it's very green, but nothing's higher than a 57. So there's not too many things that he does very well against left-handed pitching. And versus righties, he's got a little bit more gap and a little bit more power. He's actually got some reverse splits going on here with a 40 eye. I think that he's just... Nothing that he does is really playing up, and that's leading to him being 8th in weighted on base average, 8th in OPS, 8th in slugging, 7th in average, and 6th in on base percentage. And all time he's 9th. Decent defensive right fielder. He plays 5th, which is probably a little bit low, but we'll see what the other right fielders look like. And he just doesn't do anything really well. He doesn't do anything bad, but the stuff that he does well, he doesn't do good enough to improve his value for Glenn Wilson. My first time seeing that card. Van Slyke, your most used right fielder. Number 9 defensively, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think some of that is, that's what I'm seeing out of Wilson too. Like he's just kind of meh. So in right field, the chances it's interesting. Especially in this format with so many left-handed starting pitchers, I think a lot of the stuff's going to left field. Van Slyke has some pretty heavy splits versus right-handed pitching. You do see 6,400 plate appearances for him. I think he's actually getting dragged down a little by being used a lot because his splits versus lefties are not very good. Really, really awesome bat versus righties. He's a pretty okay defensive right fielder. He's showing pretty bad. The range is a little bit low, but the arm and error are going to help you out in right field. And he can run bases too. So he's number 1 among right fielders in steals. He'll hit some home runs. He's a really well-rounded bat versus right-handed pitching. It's a left-handed heavy format, so keep that in mind. He's gonna lose some of his value because of so many left-handed pitchers here in the format. I think he's a decent right field option still, though. Let's see who the rest of the guys on the list are. There's Bake McBride. McBride versus righties, 70 contact, 78 gap, 49 power, 61 avoid Ks. This is a super solid bat versus right-handed pitching. With 77 range, the 43 arm from McBride is not great. I think McBride's an interesting designated hitter option, but also a good bat in right field versus right-handed pitching too. Again, guys are going to go first to third, maybe score from second off of him, but a 43 arm's not atrociously bad. It's not terrible. McBride with a 283 weighted on base average, 247 average, 271 on base percentage, which are all pretty much right in line with his all-time. I've started using him in bronze. He's an interesting card to me. You have to have a tremendous name to be a good baseball player. Lukhtar, I thought that was a thing. You know, like Rick Smith, right? Another up now, but you're not desperate enough to pay last 7 times 14. One of you just put him up, is that Coleman? Are we talking about Coleman right now? Or not Coleman, Devon White right now. McBride comes in at number 6. Number 5 is Otis Nixon. We talked about him in center field. I like him better as a center fielder than a right fielder. The arm plays down in right field, and his right field rating isn't great. I think you're seeing this as a backup. This is probably him backing up Kirby Puckett in center field and whoever people are playing as a right fielder. He's just playing kind of not quite a super utility, but a little bit of a utility option in the outfield for Otis Nixon. Number 4, Mike Marshall. I'm pretty sure this is just people not switching him to first base when they're playing him. He's going to be pretty solidly bad defensively in right field. It's the 36 range with a 29 rating is bad, and the error is not good either. If you're going to play Marshall, he's going to be your designated hitter or your first baseman, and he's got pretty solid power versus right-handed pitching, but he's got pretty solid numbers versus lefties too. So I don't think I'd play him in right field if I were you. Dave Gallagher comes in at number 3. So we just talked about him a little bit in center field. I think that he plays up a little bit in right field. 71 arms, a little bit better. 57 right field rating. I don't really... He's probably not that bad defensively. Right field is always really strange. I think that a guy like Marshall, who gets a ton of opportunities at first base, really messes up my right field numbers. I think Marshall, especially in bronze, I think Marshall is messing with my right field defensive numbers. What does it mean when you see last 7? The last 7 days average price. Yeah, that's what it means on the auction house. And so Gallagher, to me, let's see, we're seeing number 2 in weighted on base average, number 2 in average, number 2 in on base percentage. We're seeing 654 I, 64 avoid Ks, a guy who leans a little bit versus lefties. A little bit of a reverse split up top in his contact gap and power. This might be our hidden gem of the day. Dave Gallagher, 2nd in average, 317 on base percentage with okay, not great base running. Again, the defense is going to be okay in right field. Interesting. Gallagher's interesting to me. On his face here. I don't know. I don't know if he plays up. Is that a good guesstimate for what things cost, or you should post them for? I don't play the auction house that much, so it's last 7 is how much people have paid over the last 7 days for it. And so I usually put stuff up for. It depends on how much I want to sell it for. If it's a card I really want to get rid of, then I'll put it up for a little bit below last 7. Or, if it's a card that I'm mediocre or lukewarm on getting rid of, then I'll put it up for right at it, or even a little bit higher depending on all-time price. Supply is overriding that a bit lately. There's a little bit of a low supply on some important cards right now. Number 2 in right field is Joe Ursulak. He's your 4th most used right fielder. I think that answers who number 1 in right field is. Solid range, 86 range, 85 error. Mediocre arm, not terrible. We've seen some worse ones. Ursulak plays a little bit of left, plays a little bit of right. Hasn't seen too much. He's right outside that top tier of players getting used, with most people using Van Slyke, but let's see, what do we got? 285 on base percentage is 4th. 3rd in weighted on base average puts him at 3rd. He does hit some home runs, some power. He splits versus righties, so he's probably going to be your backup, your secondary platoon option here in this format, because of 43-54 with these numbers up top is a little bit scary versus lefties. I think you're going to probably want to keep him facing mostly right-handed pitching if you're putting him in there. So Ursulak's going to be a secondary platoon for you. All time, he ranked 7th, so he had a really good week this week, but all time you're seeing 8th in weighted on base average, 8th in batting average, 8th in on base percentage. So I think that he had a solid week this week, but I think that overall we're probably looking at a mediocre option in right field, perhaps a backup left fielder / right fielder. At number 1 in right field, here he is again, Devon White. I'll be honest, he looks great. He looks like a solid right fielder. He looks like I can't fault anybody for putting him in at center field or right field. Solid power. Again, the I plus avoid Ks is a little bit scary. He's going to strike out and not walk a lot. So you're going to see his on-base percentage pretty low. But he's going to give you good power. He's going to give you good base running. He's going to be, I mean, even with that, his on-base percentage and batting average look okay. Right around league average with good power, with above average power and good defense. Solid looking center field / right field option for Devon White. He's not in any missions. I don't know if I have this card. I do not know if I have Devon White. It does not look like I have him. He is a 65 rated right fielder. 64. Yeah, I don't have him at the moment, so I can't even put him into my lineup. Good morning, Simple Enigma. Good to see you. Yeah, interesting. Solid looking option here in bronze defense format. I like him a lot. Devon White. That's one that I'm going to have to put on my list for my pack openings when I do my big pack openings. Remember those days when all we did was open packs? This became a lot of work since then. None of you probably remember that. That was early in the days. Let's go on to the pitchers. That's how I started. I opened a Huey Jennings a week in and was like, oh, I've got 500 packs to open. My team was packs only back then. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. There's 600 cards. Yeah. Some of them are pretty expensive too. Some of them are really useful. Pitchers. We had 17 pitchers qualify. 16 pitchers qualify. Brian Holman is one of them. He's a 69 rated pitcher. He's got a 3.8 FIP, 381 earned run average. Was 10th most used in this format. You have him on your main, but not the team you play this format with. I have to start thinking about my options for next, for Out of the Park 22 and how I'm going to manage the teams. So, anecdote here. This year, much like last year, I have my main team. All 3 of my teams start packs only until one of them draws the 100, and then like the historical perfect, and then they become my packs only team. They just open packs, and then one of my other teams I usually do a theme team with, and the other team will usually be like kind of whatever. They get largely ignored. And then so I think for 22 the plan is going to be for the decimals to be my packs only team, and I think I'm going to make my secondary team my tournament team, where I try to do good tournaments, the big tournaments, and then my other team will be the small tournaments, because I'm going to have to get 2 product keys so I can keep running 6 tournaments at a time, just to get data. So I'll have that third team that runs all of these tournaments, so like the bronze, the iron, bronze defense, and that kind of stuff, and then the tournament team, or it might even be the decimals. I don't know. Thanks, Stens. Bunch of you were there in pack days. Nice to see. And so thanks for following me all the way this long. I appreciate it. Holman comes in at 15. Nearly a 4. Let's see, what do we got for pitchers stats? We got 327 earned run average overall. We got just under 2 walks per 9 innings. We've got 4.8. Keep in mind, these are all time, not separated as starters versus relievers. Half a home run per 9 innings. So Holman at 15th, 11th in earned run average and FIP over this period, 13th and 11th all time. He grades out 13th all time. He was 10th most used over this reporting period, but pitching, there's going to be some interesting pitchers on this list. We don't see the Greinke. We don't see the Aldridge that you see so much out of. It looks like it's Heaton and Higuera now. So let's see where they show up. Number 14 is Eric Show, your 8th most used pitcher all time. Higher stuff, good movement, lower control. I'm going to guess that he, even with that movement, he's not very good at home run suppression. That's really interesting. 0.5, right around league average, but 12th among starting pitchers at home run suppression. High stuff has him 4th among starting pitchers in strikeouts. Lots of walks. 3.3 walks per 9 innings is not what you want out of your starting pitcher, I don't think. Maybe you do. I don't know. If I'm going to have 3.5 walks per 9 innings, I'm going to need better home run suppression than that, I think. I don't like Eric Show. I will not be putting him in my rotation, I don't think. Number 13 is John Burkett. High stuff, lower movement, pretty good control. He's 8th in walks per 9 innings at 1.73. God, that is really bad. 3.34 walks per 9 innings. That's terrible. Eric Show, you're a bad pitcher. Thanks, Luke. Good luck. Have a great day. You like Zahn and Moyer to go with the big two. We'll see. We'll see what they look like. It looks like we're going to see most of these guys on the list at some point. So Burkett comes in 15th and 13th this week. He is 8th and 9th in FIP and earned run average all time at 3.28 and 3.48. He grades out 9th all time, just a 58% start percentage though. So keep that in mind. That's if you're running him as a starter, which you can see right away. So start percentage goes up 6%, and he's now inflating by almost half a run and almost a full run in earned run average. So I think Burkett might be a guy who's better used as a relief pitcher. Just because you can, when his start percentage goes down, it looks like he's a little bit more solid. This is a really, really high earned run average for Burkett. Will strike guys out, 6.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. Puts him first among starting pitching, which is a little bit surprising to me because his stuff isn't terribly high. We're seeing he is a right-handed, well, he is a right-handed pitcher too, so you get a little bit of help because you're seeing a whole bunch of right-handed batters. So he's kind of a reverse meta pitcher who's getting a little bit of a benefit from that, I think, but does have a home run issue. 0.92 home runs per 9 innings is like double what some of the other guys are going to allow. So again, 0.6 once he gets a little bit more relief, but that's still not great. I think I'm going to avoid John Burkett at this point too. Tom Seaver comes in at number 12. He's your 5th most used all time. And so 12th and 13th in earned run average, 14th and 15th all time, 62% start percentage. So that's even with getting used as a reliever quite a bit. I don't think I love Tom Seaver all that much. Decent home run suppression, 57 movement. Again, versus lefties, he's a right-handed pitcher. So 6 strikeouts, 5th in home runs, and then some walk issues here as well. 2.47 walks. That seems exorbitantly high for this control, but he's also got only 2 decent pitches, and one of them's pretty close to not quite decent too. So Seaver's got 5 pitches, decent stamina, yes, used a lot. Doesn't look great. Let's see how the rest of the pitchers stack up against him. Number 11 is Jeff Zahn. So here is Boyer likes Jeff Zahn. He was 9th this week in FIP, 16th in earned run average at 4.69 though. Again, a lower start percentage for him, 90 stamina. He's a high movement, high control guy with splits versus lefties. He will not strike people out, so you're going to want good defense out there. Pretty good home run suppression and pretty good walk suppression too. Balls are going to be in play. You're going to have Ozzy out there. I'm going to assume that you're running Puckett out there in center field. Maybe Devon White in right field now. Vince Coleman in left field. He's a neutral finesse pitcher. Maybe Terry Pendleton at third base. You're going to need some really solid defense behind Jeff Zahn. And so I think that's what you're seeing here. The FIP is really good. We're seeing a pretty solid top 10 FIP, right? The earned run average is a little bit below that because the defense, you're gonna need solid defense behind him. So what effect does having all of Zahn's pitches be bad have on him? It has an effect for sure. There's definitely an effect there. The sinker is not great. The changeup and curveball are really bad. The fastball is pretty bad. So again, he's not going to be striking guys out. You're going to want good defense behind him. You're going to have good defense behind Zahn. Who was it? Boyer says he loves Zahn. I don't know that I love Zahn. I don't know. You'd have to have a pretty solid defense behind him. Control plus home run. Interesting, especially in a defense. I'm really curious. Can't help but call him Zwan. The less stuff, the better D you need. Absolutely. So Boyer, if you're willing to let us know, what kind of numbers are you getting out of Zahn and what kind of defense are you running out there? Here's Kurt Young. We're going to move on and not talk about Zahn too much more, but I'm really curious what Boyer's putting out there. Yeah, he's really good at keeping the ball in the park. So you're going to need good defense. 11th in FIP, 8th in earned run average for Young. Top 10 in all of these, which top 10, we're talking about 16 people, so you're like mediocre, midpoint. He is your 9th most used guys, 10th in FIP, 5th in earned run average for Kurt Young, over a 70 or so start percentage, over 1,300 innings pitched. Decent stuff, okay movement, decent control, everything's just kind of decent. He's a left-handed pitcher with a little bit of a reverse split going on for Kurt Young. 57 fastball, 57 changeup, 78 curveball. 90 stamina, 90 hold for him. You like Moyer is the best, so you're curious to see how he ranks. We will definitely see him somewhere, I believe. And so that's Young at number 10. Number 9 is Rasmussen, who's your 3rd most used all-time and over this week. Again, another guy. He's another lefty with a little bit of a... No, lefty. Yeah, a little bit of a reverse split for Rasmussen, too. Good fastball, changeup, curveball, 3-pitch mix. Getting used mostly as a starter. 55 stuff, 52 movement, almost 70 control for him. Top 10 in strikeouts, home runs, just outside the top 10 in walks. 329 FIP with a 339 earned run average for him. Looks basically right in line with his all-time stuff at 338 and 329 all-time for Dennis Rasmussen. He ranks 11th all-time. He's getting hurt a little bit by his not being very high on all of these. And I think that with Rasmussen, you're probably seeing a little bit of a large sample size thing too, where you might see some guys higher on the list who have a little bit of a smaller sample size. And the other thing with Rasmussen is all of it as a starting pitcher almost. So he's not like some of the other guys that you're seeing with 70%, where their numbers, their strikeouts, and their numbers get inflated, deflated, however you want to look at it, by having more as a relief pitcher too. So Rasmussen, I think, is a solid option as a starting pitcher. Number 8, here's Doug Bird, your 4th most used. Going to have some home runs with him, but he's going to strike guys out. He's going to have a good walk rate. Just does have a little bit of a home run issue for Bird. 10th in earned run average, 8th in FIP. And all-time, he's 8th in earned run average and 7th in FIP with a 3.25. Numbers right in line with that all-time. Right on the border. Surprised to see Bird getting only 50% start percentage. So that's inflating his numbers a little bit too. I'm going to guess maybe he gets a good stuff boost versus being as a relief pitcher versus as a starting pitcher. He does only have the 3 pitches. So interesting. I would expect as a starting pitcher to see these numbers be a little bit worse than this, maybe significantly so, since he does only have the 3 pitches and he does have a home run issue. That's really interesting. Bird at 52% or something. Does better for others than you. Generally speaking, how much do I weight the past week's numbers versus all-time numbers? So for me, when I'm actually putting my team together, I tend to lean towards the all-time numbers. I tend to weight them a little bit heavier, unless I'm seeing really big shifts in the meta. So you can see the current pitching versus we're seeing 3% more lefties. It's not a huge change in the meta that's going on right now. So I don't know how much do other people feel on that? Bird plays for you and all bronze. Yeah, I think Bird is a decent option. I think that maybe a better option as a relief pitcher than as a starting pitcher, though, based off of what I'm seeing here. Let's see. So getting back to business. So I lean a little bit more towards all time unless there's something weird going on. I use the this week because doing the same. I've been doing iron, bronze over and over for like 8 months now. And so it got kind of stagnant. So being able to parse them out and see some cards and see some players that we didn't necessarily see before has been fun for me. And so I like seeing like, some of the cards that we just haven't seen in the past. So let's see. Boyer runs Oberkfell, Pendleton at third, Ozzy at short, Oster. That is a very, very defensive heavy lineup. So makes sense, but does have some bad tournaments. Yeah, I can see him having some bad tournaments. Interesting. So Boyer does like Zahn and plays a very defensive heavy lineup. How's your offense look? Bosky comes in at number 7, 64%, 80% all-time starting. You can see, and this is where you can see that a little bit, right? This is a smallish sample size for Bosky. Again, this tournament's really hard to get a lot of data in, and having just redone the spreadsheets 2 months ago, I'm still building it back up. You can see where we're only at a 200,000 plate appearance sample size right now. So a guy like Bosky, 279 innings pitched, you can see 64% as a reliever. You're getting way, way, way better results out of him as a reliever than out of him as a starter, where he all-time is at 80% starting pitching. You're seeing numbers that are almost a full run higher than what you're seeing as a more heavy relief pitcher. And that's not a huge change. That's only 15%. So Bosky is definitely a guy who I look at these numbers and I go, I don't think I want him to be a starter. Potentially as a reliever, I could see him as a relief pitcher. The home run suppression is pretty good as more heavy as a reliever, but that's kind of where I use the numbers. So he comes in at number 7, but I think he's probably closer to relief pitcher than starting pitcher. Let's see. Hey, I rock this. Good to see you. You had a meeting and you're starting to grind these. Yeah, you can watch. It'll be up tomorrow. Hopefully, Rich will get it up tomorrow morning. I'll have the list up on the Discord too. Business when tracking all time. So yeah, so it's a recent thing. So I got the idea from watching one of DRC Nomad's streams, and I only recently started using the pivot tables. Where are they? The pivot tables, I had no idea what they were until like 2 or 3 months ago. And so I saw what DRC was able to do with his pivot tables. I was like, that's really interesting. I think that I can parse it out. And so it took a day or two to make it work. And so, I update it every day. So if there's one thing that I really try to do is I'm always trying to make it a little bit better. And so this was probably my biggest upgrade. Was learning how to use the pivot tables. And so at one point I was parsing as a starting pitcher out from as a relief pitcher, but we ended up with lists that were like all the same people. Just this guy pitches well as a starter and a relief pitcher. And it was kind of annoying. So I crushed everything back together. And now I'm running the list like this just so you can see the start percentage and make adjustments based off of that. I really like having the this week stuff, because it allows me to see, again, guys that I wouldn't necessarily see otherwise, but I tend to lean towards a larger sample size. I think that a larger sample size is really useful unless something is really changing in the meta. As like if we were seeing like all time there was 60% left-handed pitching, but now all of a sudden we're seeing like 70% right-handed pitching. That's where I would take the more recent stuff into account more so than the all-time stuff. Hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks, bottom of the 6. Good to see you. Hopefully we'll see you on tomorrow for the players of the month in the OHBL. You minimized your all-time numbers after the card dump. And that makes sense too, Sid, because the card dump that happened a couple months ago really changed everything. And that's about the time where my sheets, the last time I updated my sheets too was about 2 months ago. So I think that the all-time is probably the stuff to go with off of the numbers that I have. But if you've been tracking stuff for 6, 7, 8 months or something, then that might be where you want to lean towards your more recent numbers than your all-time numbers. Number 6 is Lamar Hoyt. Not showing up on the list over here. A 95% start percentage, really small sample size. This is kind of the guy that I think you're going for with Zahn, right? So if we look at Greg Zahn, or Jeff Zahn, sorry, with the 79 movement, 79 control, 72 movement, 77 control versus lefties. And then we get up to Hoyt, who's a 51-89. Just a little bit better control than Zahn. The movement's pretty low, so you're going to see some home run issues, but sub 1 walks per 9 innings for him. And, you know, when you're talking about the difference between a 0.5 and a 0.8 or something, or even like he's league average in allowing home runs, you're going to need good defense with Hoyt, though. 312 FIP, 403 earned run average, so you can see a guy like him with the lower stuff, higher, moderate movement, higher control. You're going to see him outpitch his earned run average almost all the time. And you can see, or you're going to see his FIP be better than his earned run average almost all the time. And you're seeing right here, it's almost a full run difference between his FIP and his earned run average. And all time, pretty small sample size on Hoyt right now. I'm curious to see if he starts getting used more. I'm really curious. That is a pretty solid FIP, but you're going to want really good defense behind him. And that is a 95% start percentage. I don't know if I have him in my rotation or not. Interesting in that Zahn vein. A little bit lower movement, but a little bit higher control than Zahn too. So interesting. Also, 6 really bad pitches. So you look at Hoyt and Zahn both as the movement and control guys, and both of them have an interesting mix of pitches. One thing that Hoyt has that Zahn doesn't is that screwball, which is probably helping out his FIP just a little bit. But I talk a little bit about screwballs. Hoyt pitches really well for you in the bronze defense tourneys. Yeah, he's looking okay. Number 5, here's Neil Heaton, the most used all-time pitcher here in the bronze defense. Solid stuff, good movement, solid control. Just 4 pitches, but 2 of them are really good. He comes in number 5, 312 FIP, 290 earned run average. You're seeing him 4th all-time, 310 earned run average, 317 FIP, almost all as a starting pitcher. This is one of those guys that I think he's definitely one of the guys that if you're not putting him in your rotation, you probably should think about doing that because he's just really solid all across the board. You know, kind of middle of the pack in strikeouts, but home run suppression and walk suppression and good enough stuff. You're gonna kind of want good defense behind him, but he's good enough with the stuff that he's gonna get guys out too. So Heaton has been kind of a standard in the top 10 of the open bronze tournaments as well. So it stands to reason that when you start limiting the sample size, he's going to be even, not the sample size, but the choices, he's going to be even more valuable here. He's always been kind of in that 4 to 8 range in the open bronze. So not surprised to see him pretty high up on this list. At number 4, here's Jamie Moore, who somebody said they thought he was the best. Who was it? I forget who it was. Zen Lunatic likes Moyer the best, and he comes in at number 4. And he's looking pretty good. He ranks 7th all time, but he was really solid this week in a starting as a starter. 271 earned run average. Yikes. Over 451 innings pitched. That's really solid. 311 FIP is pretty good too. Number 4. Top 7 in strikeouts, home runs, and walks right across the board there. Again, when you're talking about home runs in this format, it's not really like last week where home run suppression was really important. So a guy like Moyer with his 45 movement can kind of get away with it. 3 pretty good pitches and a cutter thrown in as well. Moyer comes in at number 4. At number 3 is Teddy Higuera. He's another high stuff, lower movement, higher control, pitches well versus lefties. You know, as expected for a left-handed pitcher. He's number 3 in FIP this week, number 4 all-time. Number 5 in earned run average this week, number 4 all-time. 5th all-time. Teddy Higuera is a guy in this format. I don't see him too much in the open bronze, but he's been really solid and really consistent here in the I see him in open bronze. He's never been super high on the list, but he's pretty consistent here in the defense. Jamie Moyer kept a notebook and tracked every single batter he faced, noting what worked and what didn't. I can imagine that being a very large notebook. And he pitched well into his 40s too, so that's interesting. Number 2, in a small sample size, is Larry Gura. comes in at number 2. Just 100 innings pitched, but 300 innings pitched all time. You're seeing 60% start percentage, so there's a little bit of inflation here due to some relief pitching. Really low stuff, really low movement. Interesting control. Not a super high control. 90 stamina, 68 hold runners. I'm not really sure what Larry Gura is doing that's working. I don't know. The only player to record a start in 4 different decades. Yeah, probably. He pitched for a really long time. He was like 46 or something when he retired. And he was still pretty good near the end, too. I don't know what's going on with Larry Gura. There's definitely some relief pitching stuff going on here, so I think that you're probably going to see this go up quite a bit as a starter. He's a finesse pitcher, 91 miles an hour, neutral. Are any of you using him? And if so, are you getting results like this? 0.09 home runs per 9 innings pitched. He's let up like 1 home run in 100 innings. That's nuts. That's crazy. Could it just be the movement? With shorter tournament, do you go 5-star? I go 5 starters, but I have it set to use my highest rested guy. I think in a tournament like this, you kind of have to go 5 because it is current settings, so it's modern day settings with a designated hitter. And you're not going to get a lot of days off. So, so the pitchers recover pretty slowly. So I think you have to go by, I think you kind of need a 5-man rotation in this. If you're sweeping tournaments and getting a day off every round, then maybe you can get away with 4. But I doubt you're going to be sweeping every tournament. It was fun watching Mora grow up. Yeah, I think it's, home run stuff, 0.22. I mean, that's a 300 inning sample size. It's not super small anymore at that point. Interesting. I might have to give Larry Gura a try. And Scott McGregor comes in at number 1. Really, really interesting here. Huh. McGregor has 3 really bad pitches. 100% start percentage for him. 186 innings pitched. Isn't a terribly small sample size either. With 100% starts. Huh. What? He is not going to strike people out. You're going to want defense out there. Interesting. So number 2 and number 1 are good movement, home run suppression guys with really good control. You're going to want, you're going to have to be running your Coleman, Puckett, Devon White in left, Pendleton or Oberkfell at third, Ozzy at short, really good solid defense at second base. And then you're going to have to get offense out of your first baseman and your catcher with that kind of a lineup. It's doable. I'm really surprised to see these 2 guys so high on the list right after each other. There's something to the movement control here in this format right now, and so it is working. And so interesting. Lower the card value seems like control destroys. Yeah, apparently control's always been important in bronze. It's been a stuff control kind of thing. So I'm curious how much these are opposite meta trends where you're seeing a lot of the lower I, higher avoid Ks, and these guys are able to take advantage of that and, avoid the home runs and not walk guys. That 0.72 walks per 9 is ridiculous. McGregor's pretty solid looking, and that's not a super small sample size at this point either of 500 innings pitched. Like if this was like 180, I'd be like, I'm just going to ignore it. But, at 186, he's almost in the top 10. Like, it's interesting. So McGregor and Gura at number 2 and number 1. Let's check out the relief pitchers and see what we've got over here. We had 27 qualifiers. We had 21 current qualifiers for this. So Interesting. So Don Ace comes in at number 15. You're seeing him at 337 FIP, 285 earned run average, 13th and 8th in those. Top 15 in all three categories. Again, 21 qualifiers this time, so 5 strikeouts. Kind of just everything across the board. 3 solid pitches for him. 21st in FIP, 19th in earned run average for Don Ace over a 528 inning sample size all time. Only 9 people have more than 500 innings pitched as a relief pitcher. Interesting. Up next, Barry Jones at number 14. Let's see. So what do we got here? 336 FIP, 384 earned run average, 12th and 18th. I don't think I really like him. He's a high movement guy. So you're seeing 0.3 home runs per 9, has him 6th. But everything else is kind of mediocre. Midpoint in strikeouts. Gonna have trouble with control. The control is just a little bit low, and the pitch combination isn't very good. It's a mediocre fastball with a mediocre slider and a bad changeup. None of his pitches are terribly good, and so he's not getting a boost from that movement. No, it doesn't look like it. Sorry. Let's see. 12th in earned run average, 14th in FIP for him all time for Barry Jones. Moving on to number 13 is Tim Cruz, your third most used relief pitcher. He's a low stuff. This is your backwards guy, right? So this is your anti-meta kind of pitcher here. 68 stuff, 87 movement, 80 control versus right-handed pitching with a lot of right-handed and switch-hitting batters out there. Cruz is a guy that I think people are using in their bullpen to kind of go against the meta. It's kind of working out. Kind of mediocre results, though. 3.42 FIP, 3.43 earned run average, 337, 328 all time. For him. No starts, 62 splitters, 71 slider. That is you don't see too many splitters in this format, so I'm a little surprised to see him be struggling as much as he is. But again, some of that is probably due to the fact that he's been used a lot too. So why are you right aligned? You're not making any sense. There. That was annoying. That was super annoying. And so Cruz comes in at number 13. Number 12 is Todd Burns. He's a low stuff, high movement, high control guy. Again, not really any splits here, so he's good against lefties and righties. You're seeing a forkball, curveball, fastball combination with a bad changeup thrown in. Number 1 in earned run average this week, but 3.54 all time. What the heck? Super lucky home run, 0.23 home runs per 9 innings, 2.37 control. Somebody's throwing him out there with really good defense behind him. Todd Burns comes in at number 12. His FIP is 3.27. His earned run average is 1.81, which I don't think is sustainable. But a 3.54 and a 3.58 all time. Interesting. Somebody figured out that he needed to put really good defense out there behind Todd Burns. Only an 80 inning pitch sample size, only 389 all time. So I lean towards these numbers a little bit for Todd Burns, because especially since this really solid performance, that's tough. It's so hard because you're like, it's a quarter of his innings pitched. Well, like 20% of his total innings pitched is this good. But if 20% of it is this good, how bad was the other 80% to make his numbers look that bad? Interesting. Number 11 is Stu Clyburn, righty specialist for Cruz. Yeah, for sure. Right there. Yeah, he's definitely a righty specialist. Burns is interesting. I don't know. I don't know what to think on him. Clyburn's another kind of right-handed specialist here. Your backwards trend, 11th in earned run average and 11th in FIP, 3.29 all-time, 308 in earned run average all-time, ranks 15th all-time. Clyburn with his splitter and his slider. He's the number 2 most used. So another righty specialist that people are using out there that's a little bit of a mixed results. We've seen now Clyburn and Cruz Both here at the bottom half of the top 15. So I'm curious to see. I think we're probably going to be seeing some really small sample size stuff here in the top 10. So we'll see what it looks like. Tunnell is another kind of right-handed specialist. Not a ton of use for him. 75 innings pitched, 502 all time. Oh, I know. There's a tie for 10th is what's going on here. It's not. That's what the issue is here, is there's a tie for 10th. And so we're getting an NA return. I don't know who number 10 is off the top of my head. It's probably somewhere right around the 502. Lee Tunnell, let's see. Good movement, stuff, control versus righties. Not a huge split, so he's not necessarily a specialist. 3.39 FIP, 4.34 ERA, top 10 in strikeouts, puts him at number 10. Interesting. Looks like gets some time as a starter as well. So he's an interesting split. Let's see. You assume a lot of people are running an all lefty rotation already. Pen possible. Michael Jackson towards the top, you would guess. Yeah, we'll see. I think Michael Jackson is towards the top. I did go through the list briefly just to make sure everything, like there weren't any big discrepancies here. But so Tunnell has a 50. One thing to keep in mind here with Lee Tunnell is that he's got a 53% start percentage all time. So he shows up on the relief pitching list. But all time, we're seeing a little bit lower numbers all time. He actually looks like he pitches a little bit better as a starter than as a reliever. So the stuff boost, I'm guessing he's probably closer to a 65, 60 stuff. Interesting. I'd be curious to see more of him as a starter for Lee Tunnell. At number 9 is Carl Willis, a lower stuff, higher movement, higher control guy in the vein of some of those starting pitchers we saw right near the top of the list. It's not working out as well for Willis right now, but a 266 earned run average and a 323 FIP for him over a 41 inning pitch sample size. 315 and 332 all time. Home run suppression is definitely a thing for him. You're playing your first ever in this format right now. You made it to the final in your first ever. Congratulations. I wish I had that kind of luck. Carl Willis at number 9. At number 8 is Ricky Horton, your fourth most used guy. He's another one of those movement control guys. He's a lefty out of the pen and looks pretty good. 312 FIP, 341 earned run average. All time, he ranks 7th. 301 FIP, 278 earned run average. I know I'm kind of breezing through the pitchers here, so if there's somebody you want me to talk a little bit more about, let me know. He definitely pitches better versus lefties. He's kind of more of a meta kind of pitcher, as a starting pitcher. I want to go back to Tunnell's interesting because a 322 FIP and a 362 earned run average would be right around top 5 for starting pitching. So interesting. Who are we on? We were on Ricky Horton. Higher movement, higher control kind of guy. He's top 5 in both home run suppression and walks. Not as many strikeouts. So we're leaning away from the strikeouts and more towards home run suppression and walk suppression here with guys like this. He is 17th out of 27 all-time in strikeouts. But again, top 5 all-time at home run and walk suppression, 8th in FIP and 7th in earned run average all-time is pretty solid. A pretty solid bullpen contributor for Ricky Horton. John Stuper comes in at number 7. You're seeing 299 and a 277 earned run average over this period. Looks like we're seeing some lower earned run average this period than all time. 807 innings pitched. Stuper is firmly in the top 10 among guys who have been used. You're in 2 finals right now. Players in 2 finals right now. Goodness gracious. So 54 stuff, better movement, decent control. So home run suppression as a right-handed pitcher and a little bit of a specialist versus righties. Stuper is getting it done for guys out of the bullpen. He comes in at number 7. At number 6, Michael Jackson comes in at number 6. 77 stuff, 77 movement, 74 control against righties. Coming in late in games, it looks like people might be pulling those lefties off the bench to bat against him. A FIP of 3, 298 earned run average all time. He ranks 11th A little bit lower than I expected to see him at. 320 FIP, 347 earned run average, but still pretty firmly. Really, that's a pretty low FIP, or a pretty high FIP and a pretty high earned run average for him all time. That's probably all my Michael Jackson that's getting that. And then you guys are getting the good one with the 3 FIP and the 298 earned run average. Whip of 1.17. Outpitched his all-time. And again, this is kind of 30% of his all-time right here, which makes sense when you think about it. 7th in strikeouts, 4th in walks. So good control. I am really surprised to see his home run numbers be that high. Versus, well, yeah, some of the more powerful guys are lefty hitters in this format too. So he does have 5 pitches. Interesting. I'm a little surprised to see Michael Jackson here this high or this low on the list. Number 5 is Bruce Sutter, the number 1 most used all time. Again, like I said a little while ago, we're probably going to see some pretty small sample sizes. So we're going to say that Jackson looks like number 2 out of the most used guys. Bruce Sutter comes in at number 5. 3 FIP, 291 earned run average. All time you've seen a 309, a 304 earned run average for Sutter. A lower movement, a little bit of a home run issue here, but really solid ratings against both lefties and righties with 3 pretty good pitches to go along with it. Sutter is a solid relief pitcher for a lot of guys out there. 2,400 innings, the most used relief pitcher, which is where you're seeing numbers a little bit higher than you would at smaller sample sizes, I think. Number 4 is Jerry Don Gleaton in his 100 innings pitched. He ranks 20th all time. Just had a really solid 100 innings over this period with a 292 FIP, a .25 home runs per 9 innings, and a 6.73. All of this was outpitching his normal numbers. Outpitching his normal strikeout numbers by almost 1.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Bumped him up quite a bit this week. At 292 FIP. Yep. He's closer to this than he is to this, I think. But interesting card to see. 81 curveball with a 66 fastball versus righties. A little bit of a split versus righties, but not a huge one. So he's not really a specialist. Just kind of a guy who pitched well over the course of this week. Number 3, Paul Ossenmacher, your number 5 most used all time. Higher stuff, solid FIP at number 4. Earned run average at 3.07. And Gorgo killing it in tournaments today. You guys are crushing it. I don't know if you're using my data, but good on you guys. Ossenmacher's versus lefties, a left-handed specialist, and so you're seeing some pretty decent numbers among guys who can use him. Bring him in after guys start bringing those left-handed batters in late in the game. The pinch hitters and whatnot. 290 FIP, 291 earned run average all time. I think he's getting used quite a bit as a specialist. We'll see some home run issues out of him, but he's going to strike guys out, and he's not going to walk too many guys either. He's at number 3. At number 2 is Calvin Schiraldi. High stuff. Moderate movement, good control. Schiraldi, more in the vein of what you see in the Open Bronze tournaments. Good fastball, curveball, slider pitcher. Again, a little bit of a home run issue, but number 2 in strikeouts, number 2 in FIP, number 4 in earned run average over this reporting period, a 1.14 whip as well. Sub 2.6 earned run average is pretty solid. All time, Schiraldi's number 1 in FIP among relief pitchers and number 4 in earned run average. He is a right-handed pitcher, right-handed specialist, really, which is going to be pretty useful in this tournament where there's not very many left-handed batters. I think Schiraldi is probably one of the few guys that you probably should have in your bullpen. A lot of these guys are really interchangeable. I think Schiraldi is probably pretty important to your bullpen based off of what's going on in the meta right now. And at number 1, your 8th most used over this reporting period is Dave LaRoche, a left-handed specialist. 275 FIP, 226 earned run average over this reporting period. A whip of almost sub 1. Top 10 in strikeouts, home runs, and walks. Number 1 in walks per 9 innings. Solid control. He ranks number 2 all time. 289 FIP, 259 earned run average. Number 1 whip. He is a specialist. There's pretty big splits here. 14 points of stuff, 14 points of movement, and 6 points of control versus left-handed batters. So he's definitely a specialist, but he's very, very good at what he does. And it looks like people are mostly using him as a left-handed specialist too. So, I don't talk a ton about team building and strategy, but LaRoche is a really good left-handed specialist here in this bronze format. Oh, we sold somebody. We have a new simulation. Let's see if the team lost. So we tried to get back to Diamond last week. We almost did. We lost 3-2 in the division series, so we didn't make it back into the into Diamond last week. But hopefully we do this week. Price with another performance looks pretty good. Let's see. Oh no, 19 and 16. We dropped into a tie for first. That's no good. It's so tough these days. Everybody's got all these good cards. We were packs only for so long. It's been so hard catching back up. But the team's been fun. 11th in runs scored. We're going to have to be better than that, guys. We'll see how they do. I got nothing else for you today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope you guys got some good stuff out of it. And let's see. Whoops. Let's go back. And I hope you guys got some good stuff out of it. I appreciate you hanging out with me this afternoon. I'll be on tomorrow to do Players of July 2023 for the OHBL. And I've got an idea coming down the pipe that I'm working on for something a little bit different that will hopefully be a lot of fun, but a little bit less work for me than some of this other stuff that I do. So join me on my Discord, and I'm going to be discussing that here within the next couple weeks, I think. I don't know if it's something that's ever going to kick off, but it's an idea that I'm floating around in my head. But again, hopefully you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope you guys have a fantastic week. If you don't come back until next Tuesday, which will be Silver Defense, and tomorrow will be OHBL. Thursday will be Transatlantic Baseball Association. Friday, I'm going to try to get another OHBL sim in on Friday because they're a lot of fun. But otherwise, you guys enjoy your week, and thanks again for hanging out with me. Peace, guys. Thanks, Oof. I'm glad that you enjoy it. So I hope everybody enjoys it. But even for the people who don't, thanks for hanging out anyway. And have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye, guys.